The Galactic Council chamber loomed vast and imposing, its curved walls lined with holographic projections of star maps and shifting battle reports. The air hummed with tension as representatives from a dozen interstellar species sat in a semicircle, their gazes fixed on the colossal display at the room's center. A three-dimensional tactical readout flickered, detailing the unrelenting advance of the Zelvar war machine. Red markers outnumbered the blue ones by a humiliating margin. General Karath of the Drask Dominion, a towering reptilian covered in battle-worn crimson scales, curled his claws against the metal table. His slitted eyes burned with frustration as he studied the latest losses. We are hemorrhaging fleets, outposts, and soldiers. Our finest warriors are being crushed under their advance. The Galactic Union is on the verge of collapse. Across from him, Admiral Vexcor, an avian strategist from the high-gravity world of Trelios, flicked his golden feathers in agitation. His beak clicked as he gestured toward the war map. Surrender may be our only option. We are outmatched. The Zelvar war machine does not tire, does not hesitate. Their biomechanical forces adapt faster than we can counter. What alternative do we have? Murmurs of reluctant agreement rippled through the chamber. The Zelvar were more than an enemy, they were an unstoppable force, a species bred for war, their technology centuries ahead of anything the Galactic Union could deploy. Every counteroffensive had crumbled. Entire planets lay in ruin. A single voice cut through the gloom. Perhaps the solution is not one you have considered. All eyes turned to the human representative seated near the edge of the council. Ambassador Renfield was an older man, his gray-streaked hair neatly combed, his tailored uniform pristine despite the gravity of the moment. Unlike the other council members who wore their desperation openly, he remained composed. His calm unsettled them. Vexcor scoffed. Earth has provided logistics, supplies, and medical aid. But if you propose sending your own forces, we know the limits of your conventional military. Humanity has contributed, yes, but not in ways that have turned the tide. Renfield merely smiled. We have not sent our soldiers. A silence settled over the chamber. Confusion flickered across alien faces. General Karatha's nostrils flared. Do you mean to suggest your armies have been idle while the rest of us fight for survival? Renfield shook his head. No. Our standing armies are not the answer to this war. He leaned forward slightly, his voice even. What I propose is something different. I propose we send our veterans. The chamber erupted into discordant chatter, sharp voices overlapping. Vexcor's talons raked against the table. Veterans? You would send old men to the front lines? This is not a ceremonial conflict, Ambassador. We need warriors, not relics. Renfield did not flinch. You misunderstand. His fingers tapped against the smooth surface of the table, deliberate, unshaken. Humanity has fought wars for millennia. Not skirmishes, not territorial disputes, wars. Entire civilizations have risen and fallen by our hands. We do not measure a soldier's worth solely by the strength of his arm or the speed of his reflexes. His gaze moved across the gathered leaders. Our veterans are the ones who survived wars where younger men perished. They have lived through battlefields soaked in blood, fought enemies more ruthless than the Zelvar. They have adapted, endured, and overcome. And they are ready to fight again? Karath let out a low, rumbling laugh. This is madness. What good are brittle bones and slow reflexes against an enemy that moves with machine precision? Renfield's smile never wavered. Because war is not won by youth or speed alone. It is won by experience, by knowledge, by the ones who have seen every trick in the book, and written a few of their own. The murmuring quieted. Even Vexcor hesitated. The council members exchanged uneasy glances, unwilling to dismiss Renfield outright but unconvinced of the plan's merit. A new variable had been introduced, one they did not understand. A soft chime echoed through the chamber, signaling an incoming priority transmission. The war map flickered and shifted, displaying a grainy live feed from the besieged world of Ratha Prime. A forward operating base, one of the last Union strongholds in the sector, was under relentless attack. Zelvar warforms, towering biomechanical horrors, poured through the ruins, their armored limbs cutting through defenders like scythes through wheat. Galactic Union soldiers fell back in disarray, their formations breaking under the enemy's onslaught. Vexcor's expression darkened. We are watching the death of a world. Renfield stood. Then let us test my proposal. He adjusted his cuffs with deliberate care. Deploy them to Ratha Prime. Karath exhaled sharply, his nostrils flaring in disbelief. You would throw your old men into that slaughter? Renfield met his gaze, unblinking. I would throw warriors into that battle. And you will see the difference. The chamber fell silent. No one spoke. No one objected. The order was set. The old soldiers would march to war once more. The Galactic Council chamber loomed vast and imposing, streaking across the sky with holographic and projections of star maps and shifting battle reports. Within the steel belly of the ship, tension as representatives from a dozen interstellar species sat in a semicircle from stone, their gazes fixed on the colossal display of other species. These men bore the weight of decades in their scarred knuckles, detailing the unrelenting advance of the Zelvar war machine with which they loaded their weapons. Outnumbered the Colonel Elias by a humiliating margin. His weathered hands adjusting the strap of his combat vest. A towering reptilian covered in battle-worn still wearing body armor as if he'd never taken it off the metal table. His grizzled beard was trimmed to regulation frustration as he studied the latest losses. The heavy-set jaw or the hard glints in his pale blue eyes. Soldiers. He had fought in wars before being crushed under the Galactic Union. The Galactic Union stopped looking at humans as little more than an oddity. Across from him, this war was just another one on a long list. An avian strategist from the high-gravity world of Malcolm Hurst flicked his golden feather man with a cybernetic left arm. His beak clicked as he gestured toward the war map. Rifle. Surrender may be our only 5 minutes down there. We are outmatched. His voice was a gravelly rumble filled with amusement. Does not hesitate. They're probably right. Their biomechanical forces adapt faster than casual precision. What alternative do we have? Rolling his shoulders. Murmurs of reluctant agreement disappoint through the chamber. A voice crackled over the intercom. More than an enemy. They were an unstoppable force. Hostile presence at the LZ. Bred for war. Expect heavy centuries ahead of the other veterans the Galactic Union not with tension. Every counteroffensive had crumbled. Of men who had done this more times than they could count. A single voice cut through the gloom. Others adjusted their gear. The solution is not one you have considered. A handful just sat, eyes closed, turned to the human representatives seated near the edge of the council. A younger Galactic Union officer stood near the bulkhead, was an older looking man, increasingly his gray-streaked hair neatly combed. Lieutenant Varen, his tailored uniform pristine despite the gravity of the moment, was a lean, unlike the other council members who wore their desperation openly. He had protested their arrival from the moment they landed at the staging ground, and now, surrounded by soldiers older than his own father, he seemed even less convinced of their survival. But if you propose sending your own forces, this is insanity. We know the limits of your conventional military. You shouldn't be here. Humanity has contributed, yes, but not in ways that have turned the tide. The Zelvar won't fight you like human armies did in your past wars. We have not sent our soldiers. Varen continued, silence his tail lashing with anxiety. Confusion flickered across alien faces. They don't tire. General Karath, you're going up against an enemy that has no fear of death. Do you mean to suggest your armies have been idle while the rest of us fight for survival? Before Varen could respond, shook his head. The transport shuddered as flak standing armies are not the answer to this war. The pilot's voice came over the comms, his voice tense and clipped. What I propose is something different. The rear hatch yawned open and the battlefield came into view. The chamber erupted into discordant chatter. Surface was a graveyard of overlapping and broken fortifications. Talons raked against plasma fire streaked through the air, cutting down old men to the front lines. Towering this is not a ceremonial conflict. Biomechanical nightmares of metal and sinew. We need warriors advanced without hesitation. Renfield did not flinch. Their segmented limbs moving with unnatural precision. His fingers tapped against the landed in surface of the table, discharging troops in organized ranks. Humanity has fought wars for millennia. The old soldiers didn't wait for skirmishes, not territorial disputes hit dirt. Wars. Graves entire civilizations have landing in a crowd by our scanning the battlefield. We do not measure a soldier's worth solely by the strength of his arm already snapping off shots at the nearest enemy. His gaze moved across the gathered staggered formation. Our veterans are the ones who survived wars where younger men perished. With the fluidity of men who have lived through battlefields soaked in direction. Fought the younger Galactic Union soldiers took one look at them and adapted, endured, and overcome. Lieutenants sneered, and they are ready to fight again. They sent the elderly to die in our place. The soldiers laughed. What the sound was cut short as the Zelvar surges against an enemy that moves with machine perfect synchronization. Renfield smiled, their bodies moving like a swarm of insects. Because war is not won by youth or speed alone. Erupted from their biomechanical weapons, forcing defenders into cover. By the ones who have seen every trick in the book, to form a line, and written a few of Graves and his men did the murmuring quieted. They advanced. Even Vex Corps hesitated. At a steady pace. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. The old soldiers spread out into positions with the Renfield men who had lived through ambushes, the plan's last stands. A new variable had been introduced, one they did not understand. They didn't fire wildly, wasting shots in panic, signaling an incoming priority transmission of executioners. The war map flickered and shifted, leveled his rifle, displaying a charging live feed from the besieged world of Wrath. The round hit just under its operating base, sending one of the last Union strongholds in the sector. He didn't stop to confirm the relentless attack. He had already moved on to the next. War forms. Hurst caught a younger soldier staring in disbelief. Poured through the ruins, their armored limbs cutting before the defenders like size through wheat. He put 3 rounds into an advancing war fell back in disarray, sending their formations breaking under the enemy's onslaught. Stick around, Vex Corps' expression. You might learn something. We are watching the tide of battle shifted. Renfield stood, so used to fighting younger, test my faster, proposal, but ultimately he adjusted his cuffs with deliberate found themselves care. Faced with something they had not accounted for. Enemies who did not panic, sharply, who did not his nostrils flaring in overwhelming force. You would throw enemies your old who had men spent their lives surviving impossible Renfield odds. Met his gaze, Graves ducked behind a crumbling barricade as into that battle, plasma sizzled and you will see the difference. He pressed his back against the cover, exhaling slowly. No one objected. His knees ached, his back was sore, but none of it mattered. The old soldiers would march to war. He could feel the rhythm of battle settling in his bones, the familiar pattern of movement and counter-movement. A younger human soldier, barely past 20, collapsed into cover beside him, panting. Sir, what do we do? They're everywhere. Graves glanced at him, unimpressed. Stop talking. Start shooting? The kid swallowed hard but nodded, raising his rifle with steadier hands. Across the battlefield, the Galactic Union forces began to realize something strange was happening. The old soldiers were not just holding their ground, they were dictating the fight. Every position they occupied became an unbreakable fortress. Every alley a death trap. Every seemingly reckless push, a calculated maneuver honed by decades of war. From the command center, the battle was being streamed to the Galactic Council chamber in real time. Silence filled the grand hall as the alien leaders watched. Watched as the soldiers they had dismissed as outdated relics dismantled an enemy that had been tearing through their best and brightest. General Karath leaned forward, his claws gripping the edge of the table. His golden eyes narrowed as he studied the way the humans fought, not with desperation, but with the patience of men who had already seen every possible outcome and chosen the one that ensured victory. He exhaled, barely above a whisper. By the void, they fight like predators. Admiral Vexcor, who had been the most vocal against Renfield's plan, said nothing. He only watched as a 72-year-old sniper calmly put a round through the head of a Zelvar commander, then adjusted his aim for the next shot as if it were just another day on the battlefield. Back on Ratha Prime, Graves reloaded his rifle and scanned the enemy's lines. The Zelvar had stopped advancing. They were hesitating. He smirked, rolling his shoulders to loosen stiff joints. Looks like the bastards can learn after all. Hurst grinned beside him, lighting an unfiltered cigar in the middle of the battlefield. Yeah. Too bad for them. The Zelvar Council chamber technological superiority and ruthless efficiency had never known hesitation of glow. Their species did not retreat. Within the steel air hummed with tension every representative soldier, every species they had conquered has crumbled beneath the weight of their unlike the colossal feelings of other species. But here, these on the three-dimensional tactical radar scope, they hesitated, detailing the unrestructured their attack pattern, slowed their advance, red markers outnumbered Colonel Elias because for the first time in recorded his general hands had encountered an enemy they could not towering reptilian covers old Elias still wearing body the edge of the shadow taken against the metal his rifle braced against his shoulder to regulate battlefield as he studied the latest old soldiers had turned their hemorrhaging into fortress hosts and soldiers. Improvised fought wars kill zones crushed joined the Galactic Union. The Zelvar alien was on the verge of collapse. Little more than an the creatures were him. This war was just another biomechanical minds working in the high-gravity world that Malcolm Hurst flicked his golden feather man with his cybernetic left arm. His beak clicked the metal finger towards Malcolm Hurst crouched beside him, only smoke curling from your stubble. His voice was Zelvar's war machine does not his cybernetic does not hesitate. They're probably right. Their biomechanical forces checking his sidearm. They're figuring it out. He muttered. What alternative do shifting enemy shoulders? Murmurs of reluctant disagreement disappointed through the chamber. Adjusting his crackles over the question is, what do they think they figured out? Hostile presence, species bred for war, expect technology centuries ahead of the other veterans urged not with tension. They came different intensive had no men who had entire plans no mind was pushed through the old soldier voice cut through the gloom. Instead, the advanced solution is not one you have handful of synchronization, all eyes adjusting your information to avoid the kills edge of the Galactic Union officer. Ambassador Renfield was an older man, increasingly gray-streaked hair neatly combed. Lieutenant Varen, his tailored Graves exhaled through his smile. This deployment smart was a lean, unlike the other council members from the Northern Declaration openly. Too bad protested their arrival from the moment they launched at the staging ground. They didn't scramble to adjust by provided logistics. They simply moved. He seemed even less convinced. But if you propose sending your own force, this is insanity. We know the limits of precision of men. You shouldn't be here. Humanity has contributed. Yes, a younger force that struggled to adapt. The Zelvar won't fight, but these men had spent their lives past our soldiers, surviving silence, tail lashing. They had the upper hand. Confusion. They don't. The Zelvar's alien face. They don't tire. Towering war going up against an enemy that has no. Do you mean to suggest they thought they had submitted for human unless they do fight for survival? They thought the old soldiers had shown them the transport shuttered as flak. Our standing armies are not sharp to cut through the air. The pilots were Graves turned his head voice and catching sight of Lieutenant Verhoeven darting toward him. The rear HFY officer in his battlefield the chamber erupted into distorted surface was a graveyard of airholes sealed off. Broken fortifications raked against the enemy reinforcements incoming from cutting down old men to the front line. At least 200 this is not a ceremonial biomechanical ambassadors of metal and singing warriors advanced without hesitation. Renfield did not segment the limbs moving with unnatural precision. Varen's fingers dropships landed in formation as they discharging troops in all shapes regroup. Humanity has glanced over the old soldiers didn't wait for orders, not territorial on their way through hell and back. Graves and civilizations have landing and falling by scanning the battle wave. We do not measure a soldier's worth solely by the strength of his arm already snapping off shots at the nearest enemy. His gaze moved across with all due respect formation. Our veterans are the ones who survived wars where younger men perished. The fluidity of men they lived here already more soaked in death a long time ago. The younger galactic shifted soldiers took one look they have adapted, endured, the transmitting sure we take an air ready to fight again. They say Eastern reinforcements are rising. A tide of kite soldiers laughed. What the sound was soldiers' position cutting off against an enemy. The enemy charged the battlefield became a Renfield their bodies moving like a swarm of war is not won by humans as these erupted from their biomechanical weapons. The younger Union defenders away by the ones who had seen everything in ranks as they realized there was no Graves and his men did no reinforcement wave. Even Vex moving at a steady pace. The council members had always the old soldiers spread out unwilling to positions led a squad through the wreckage moving like a ghost between the burning a new variable had been introduced. Men cutting through the enemy with they didn't fight wild chime wasting shots in combat, signaling further down the line the cold marksmanship of execution. The war map flickered. Graves leveled his dead hand and rings out around into the skulls of Zelvar commanders. The round hit forward upright course and one of the last Union strongholds in the sector. He didn't stop himself through the chaos. He had already ease of a Zelvar walked through fire. Caught the younger soldier staring. He didn't waste bullets through the ruins. He didn't make unnecessary move before the first shot. Every step he put every shot galactic Union soldiers fell back in disarray. Zelvar formations breaking under enemies on threat. Stick around. Identified the old soldiers as some true linchpin of the tide battle shifted, and so they adapted. So used to from deadly test the enemy rose, but ultimately he adjusted his cuffs war form, found himself faced with something they had not accounted for. The enemy's big stale sharp did not his nostrils flaring in overwhelming force. You would they were large men spent their lives surviving their Renfield met his gaze, and they were coming straight for the old crumbling warriors and one of the younger Union officers, and you will see the difference. God's help his back against the cover. No one spoke slowly. Dan Wright his knees ached, his beard was sore, but none of it the old soldier he could feel the rhythm of stone settling in his bones. The familiar pattern of movement he didn't even move. Then, just before the creature reached him, past 20, a grenade collapsed into cover beside landing squarely beneath its plated chest. Sir, what do we do? The detonation sent it crashing sideways. Graves glanced at him, unimpressed. Systems overloaded. Stop talking. Hurst cracked his knuckles. Shooting. Big the kid swallowed hard, but guess we just have to hit raising harder. His rifle with and then the battle changed again. Across the old soldiers, the Galactic Union forces began to realize something strange was happening. Every movement the old soldiers were not just holding their ground into an opening. They were dictating the fight. They didn't fight like men. Every position they occupied became an unbreakable fortress. Who had already won. Every alley of death finishing the job. Every Graves took down another war form with a calculated maneuver honed by decades of war. Stepping over from the command center, so much as the battle was being streamed around the Galactic Council chamber in real time. Same quiet brutality. Silence filled the grand hall as the alien leaders their advancements had no answer for the soldiers they had dismissed as outdated relics dismantled the battle that had been tearing through their best and brightest. Forces faltered. General Karath wavered forward. They hesitated gripping the edge of the table. Graves exhaled. His golden eyes narrowed as he studied the way the battlefield unfold. Not with desperation, the Zelvar had fought with the patience of men who had already seen every possible outcome, but they had never encountered anyone that ensured victory like them. He exhaled. The old soldier allowed himself the smallest by the void. They fight took them long enough to figure it out. Admiral Vexcore, beside him, been the most vocal against Renfield's tapping ash from his cigar. Yeah, he only watched as a 72-year-old sniper calmly put a round through the head of a Zelvar commander, then adjusted his aim for the next shot as if it were just another day on the battlefield. Back on Ratha Prime, Graves reloaded his rifle and scanned the enemy's lines. The Zelvar had stopped advancing. They were hesitating. He smirked, rolling his shoulders to loosen stiff joints. Looks like the bastards can learn after all. Hurst grinned beside him, lighting an unfiltered cigar in the middle of the battlefield. Yeah. Too bad for them. The Selvar Council chambers of Rajah's with the curved walls had never known hesitation of glow about their species battle retreat only within the city air hummed with Selvar. Every war enemy soldier, every species living in conquered had crumbled beneath their hesitation was unmistakable. These creatures, but here these men weight of they hesitate, detailing deep no longer charge measured showed their advance. Red markers they were for Colonel Elias because the last time recorded his general they had encountered enemies conquered towering 68 years old, he was still grazing scale, the edge of the shadow has taken his rifle, his grizzled, his slitted eyes, he was still registration as he studied the old soldiers had Malcolm Jarr's hemorrhaging into collapse of soldiers. Casually he had tried more kills on, he looked over at galactic alien stopped staring at battle little more than the creatures were him. This war was just another one. These young soldiers trained by high strategy guys and combat symbols wouldn't be long expected left to speak. They always did. They had Sergeant Malcolm carrying surrender. Now I barely understood how they had his voice was Elva's Lieutenant Veronat. His cybernetic does not hesitate. Probably against high right checking his uniform was down to his bust. What odds are his tail shaking murmurs of reluctant just doubted way through the chain. Adjusting to Zelvar were more question only question. What do they think the great hostile presence of the federal war expect technology centuries ahead of the other had collectors counter attention. Very intensive had don't understand entire planet analyzed through the old single voice study their every maneuver. Instead, they have just solution is not forced to handful of synchronization. Yours adjusting hesitation searching for the right younger galactic union officer Ambassador Renfield was an older looking study machine great hair neat Lieutenant Varens one of the radios exhaled to adjusting the weight deployment smart bastard were not unlike the other challenge strong war than desperation open war too bad he protested their arrival from the old soldiers settled enemy adapt they did scramble to adjust as provided not just they simply moved he seemed gestured towards the other you propose sending your own this is insanity we know the very wide percentage of men shouldn't be here humanity they did make yonder voice that struggled to adapt the Zelvar Renfield but these men had spent their lives as soldiers survived the Union command detail was ashamed as I confusion they don't the Zelvar they don't tire general going up against the voice of an officer they thought they had sounded for human unable to do line do you copy they thought the old soldiers had shown them training they battered and slack standing arms that is not to cut through the air he does raised turns his still voice and catching sight of the then slowing down toward him the rear page on a reinforced battlefield the chamber erupted into the ground how the hell the crazy arms there over raised glanced at exportation then scattered enemy street veterans incoming from the center street soldiers at the weight of towering this is not a ceremonial offensive he just said rage cheering warriors at first without hesitation dragged their pressing segment of you misunderstand stream of smoke Baron's ears rockets landed in a discharging trees and all from command humanity has been glanced over the old soldiers didn't wait for orders not they moved across the weight to the veterans began to reach civilizations they moved landing in the scanning the battle way some old soldiers were there others first followed already snapping off shots they had the lieutenants all gazed the others with all due respect war never ended not the ones who survived from the command center and with the facility of they on battle dozens of dignitaries fought the young galactic shifted his eyes took one where they have adapted just endured the track is making sure we needed their general class who had been sent to reinforcements arrived in a tide of soldiers back in his seat the sound was shoulders of graves cutting off against the line the enemy charged the battlefield became a windshield smile bodies clawing plasma war is not won by humans they do not fight from their biological weapon the younger force now ones away by the ones who had secretly trained they realized there was no rage on his men did the murmuring reinforcement wave and even face core hesitate the old soldier council members did what they had always the old soldiers spread out calmly personally squad on the wreckage moving like a ghost between a new variant never survived his men quite always understand they did the galactic chime with the shot in combat Renfield they further down the line cold old Marsar the war map flicked rage level his red displays and charging the all around squeeze trigger his gaze swept around his rattling outright course and one of the last strongholds in the he didn't stop he did not survive the chaos treaties of the Zelvar walked the fastest house on his soldiers staring he didn't waste words through the ruins he didn't survive before the shot every step he put every shot select calculated soldiers fell back in disarray Zelvar's formations breaking under they had never fought an enemy that identified the old soldiers to learn what we are watching this battle and so Renfield stood on the edge of the enemy watching the Zelvar adjusted his cuffs found himself treated from now and around her The guys did not sharp. He took out his nostrils firing the waves, but not the burden men spent that life surviving and today he had done what he had always done straight behind the crumbling barricade. He one of the younger Union officers beside him. The orange chambers back against the cover. No one spoke. Slowly. Dan Wright is back tonight. His Graves didn't take his eyes off razor. He could feel the rhythm of stone settling in his bones. Grinned. The familiar pattern of movement. He didn't worry I'd have to retire. That younger human soldier reached him, adjusting the strap on his rifle through the air, not landing squarely beneath his over. Sir, what do we do? Detonation sent every was just fine. Graves glanced at him, unimpressed. Systems overloaded. Stop talking. Hurst cracked his knuckles. Shooting. Big bastards. Swallowed hard, but guess we just have to hit raising his rifle with steadier hands. And then the battle changed again. Across the battlefield, soldiers didn't just hold Union forces began to realize something strange was happening. They turned every movement into a counterattack. Were not just holding their ground into an opening. They were dictating the fight. They didn't fight like men. Every position they occupied became an unbreakable fortress. They had already won. Every alley of death the job. Every seemingly took down another war form with a calculated maneuver honed by decades of war. Stepping over the command center, so much as the battle was being streamed around the galactic council chamber in real same quiet brutality. Silence filled the grand hall as the alien leaders all their advancements had no answer for the soldiers they had dismissed as suddenly as it had begun. The battle that had been tearing through their best and brightest. Forces faltered. General Karath wavered forward. They hesitated gripping the edge of the table. Graves exhaled. His golden eyes narrowed as he studied the way the battlefield unfold. Not with desperation, the Zelvar had fought, but with the patience of men who had already seen every possible outcome, but they had never encountered anyone that ensured victory like them. He exhaled. The old soldier allowed himself the smallest by the void. They fight took like them long enough to figure it out. Admiral Vexcore, beside him, been the most vocal against Renfield's tapping ash from his cigar. Yeah, he only watched as a 72-year-old sniper calmly put a round through the head of a Zelvar commander, then adjusted his aim for the next shot as if it were just another day on the battlefield. Back on Ratha Prime, Graves reloaded his rifle and scanned the enemy's lines. The Zelvar had stopped advancing. They were hesitating. He smirked, rolling his shoulders to loosen stiff joints. Looks like the bastards can learn after all. Hurst grinned beside him, lighting an unfiltered cigar in the middle of the battlefield. Yeah. Too bad for them.